check tape. 1 o'clock this afternoon works perfectly.
I did a 30-minute on Zoom where no one told me they touched my screen because I stopped sharing because you were facing it. And then like, Kathy.
Oh, that was fine. We were.
I know, but to see Kimberly Crenshaw and not take
See.
it's killing me.
All right, we are live. I'm sending the new link out.
Is it working?
She had set up a new link. So we got it.
Did I hear Lyric's voice?
Yes.
I'm sending it to you right now, and then I'll work on all of our stuff.
Rebecca, how hard is it for you to get the synergy right there?
For me to get what? I'm working on it. I'll get it out via Synergy. I'm sending it to Lyric right now.
Can we join you?
No.
On your seat.
Just walk out.
All right, Lyric, you should have it.
It's not far away from you.
Now the text starts struggling.
So we are experiencing the need to set up a new link for YouTube, so we're going to start in a few minutes, but we'll get there. Just as soon as we get that out for people.
I'm hugging over you. How are you? How's my puppy?
Not optional.
We have every
That takes time. I can do it now. With an assistant. An hour. Well, an hour and a half. Split it up into two.
Is that for you?
Set up with her down.
Watch the actual.
Oh, I didn't have to do it.
Oh,
the mic will pick up everything you say. All right, get loud.
How are we doing, Rebecca?
It went out via Synergy, working on socials.
And then whoever might be in the
Rebecca, are you able to send this out over like Synergy or something?
I already did, it's just reviewing. But that's why I sent it to you first, so while I send it all the places, hopefully you can send it to your places and we'll get it out to everybody. Okay, it went on Facebook, putting it on Twitter now. Eric, it went out. I have it in my sent now through Synergy. How are you? Thank you.
Ms. Sutton, do you see any people watching it now? So that'll give us our indication. Like,
We currently have, oh, no, that's the old one. 33.
so,
We were at 42 on the other one.
did Dr. Hogwood get back to you, Ms. Addison? I apologize. If you just came in, we had a glitch with our YouTube, so we had to send out a new link, so we're just pausing to make sure that that is live for everyone. Ms. Sutton, good?
Just putting it out on Blackboard. It's gone out all the ways. 88.
Benson, good?
88.
Okay. I apologize again for the delay. Welcome, everyone. This is Shelton Mooney. My name is Shelton Mooney. I am proud to be the principal here at BCC. We are going to spend a little bit of time tonight talking about some general safety information and some specific things. What I do want to say, even though I don't look at this crowd and think that, but I just want to make sure, several news stories alluded to the fact today that this would be a fentanyl awareness thing like they did, or a forum like they did at Clarksburg on Saturday, and it will not be. We will not talk about fentanyl. We won't do anything with it. So if that's why you're here, you will not offend me if you get up and leave. But I do want to say that because I don't want you to sit through the entire evening that we're here and then be really upset at the end because you didn't get what you thought you were going to get out of it. So again, we're going to not talk about fentanyl. We're not going to do anything with Narcan tonight. So if that's kind of where you are and what you're here for, again, will not offend me if you get up and leave. So tonight we're going to do a few things. We're going to talk about what we're going to do and how we're going to run through this meeting. And we're going to do a little bit of a review of some of our emergency preparedness. Some of this will be stuff you've seen before, but it doesn't hurt for us to go through it again. Let's share some safety information specific to BCC, and then we'll do some question and answer with that. We talked about the structure of the meeting, we are going to do some information sharing at first, and then we're going to look at those questions that were submitted in the Google form. There were about 27 questions that were submitted, and most of them fell broadly into some categories. We will have an opportunity for you to ask questions, and we're going to do that in a slightly different way to try to cut down on some redundancy tonight. So Ms. Teicher and Ms. Adamson have baskets and cards. If you would like a card, we will pass you a card. If you write down your question, then we will get that card from you, and Ms. Malchodi will do some collating over here so that we can get the questions kind of themed so that we don't get the same question 4 or 5 times, which is what we have seen happen in the past. And the last thing, which is sometimes the hardest one, is that we may not answer all questions tonight. We may just not be able to do that, whether that's because of time or because of an answer needing to be looked at or something like that. So there is that element which may be necessary for you to expect. So I am here tonight, and again, I'm supported by my administrative team, but I do have a few other people that I just want to recognize. They don't have assigned speaking parts, but when we get to the Q&A, if there are things that they're better prepared to answer than I am, they will definitely step in. So we are joined by Dr. Peter Moran, who is our Associate Superintendent, Mr. Sean McGee, who is our Director, Mr. Neil Owens, I had to look down there to remember you were there, Neil. Mr. Neil Owens, who is the Cluster Security Supervisor that supports BCC, and Ms. Kat Malchodi, who is a Coordinator in the Department of Safety and Emergency Management.
Former math teacher.
I would never remember that without her telling me that. So the real goal of what we're going to talk about tonight is school safety. And in thinking about even how to begin that conversation, I just want to frame it as really that this is something that we all want. We all want our school to be safe. We want students to be safe. We want us teachers to be safe. We want staff to be safe. We don't want to worry about what's going on. So whether you're a person in this auditorium who is a staff member here, or a student here, or a parent here, we all want this school to be safe. We want our children, if you were here in September, you heard me say, we want our children to come home at the end of the day the same way they left to go to school at the end of the day, and that's the goal. So that does mean that we have some roles that we have to play here, and that we really need to do all together. And we need to focus on not only prevention of unsafe activities and circumstances, we need to educate our students about what is safety, how we achieve safety, what is unsafe, and how to avoid that. Sometimes we have to have some consequences for unsafe behavior, and we have to sometimes repair harm that's done. So those are elements that we're working on all the time at the school level, and part of the conversation we want to have is really how we can do that all together, how we can engage everyone in that. So before we get really specifically into that, I do want to talk about a little bit about emergency preparedness. So again, some of this you've seen before, but it's important to review occasionally. The state of Maryland does require us to do 6 different types of mandated drills: lockdown, shelter in place, reverse evacuation, drop cover, and hold shelter, and a severe weather shelter. I'm going to talk briefly about just a few of those. The fire evacuation drill is one that's required of us, and we have to do 5 a year because we do have an emergency sprinkler system, but it requires us to practice vacating the building so that we could, in a fire emergency, allow all of the equipment to get in here and make the building able to be returned to. A severe weather shelter is when we have a severe weather alert, we move our students into a safe location in the building, and we wait until that weather has passed. We've done that a couple of times in my 4 years at BCC, actually, where we've had to move students. We also do a drill on this every year so that we know where our students are supposed to go. And the last one I'm going to talk about tonight is a shelter in place. And that is when we have a situation outside that requires us simply to make sure that all of our students are safe. And that's a situation outside the building, where we're bringing everyone in and kind of monitoring what's going on. So we are looking for that type of information there. So before we go to that, I'm going to say, so I am going to share a little bit of details. I'm changing gears rapidly here because really the nexus for this meeting tonight was what happened last Monday in school. So I'm going to share with you information about what happened and try to give you a timeline. I will say that this is not an easy situation for the two young ladies who were involved or for their parents to deal with, and that we spent quite a bit of time today, the administrative team spent quite a bit of time with the students and their parents trying to talk through this and think about how they could come back from it and how we could help them reacclimate here at BCC. But I do want you to know what happened and how we made some of the decisions. So last Monday morning, a student reported to a teacher that 2 students were passed out in the bathroom. And that teacher immediately called security. Security responded and asked for administrative assistance. At that time, the security guard shared with us that they appeared to be under the influence of alcohol. That was his decision. Once I got there, we immediately called 911. And when EMS responded, they determined that both of the students needed to be transported to a local hospital for evaluation and treatment. At that time, I made the decision to hold the bells. We were almost at the end of first period. And the real goal in doing that was to preserve the dignity of those 2 young ladies who were on stretchers in a hallway being pushed out to an ambulance and to not have 2,300 people walk by them at the same time. So that's why the decision was made to do that. At the same time I did that, I sent an email to the staff saying this is an emergency medical situation that we're dealing with in a bathroom, and as soon as we can ring the bells, we will, and we made that announcement. We ended up holding class about 8 minutes longer than it normally is. That first period class lasted about 8 minutes more. The students did go to a local hospital. They were accompanied, each of them was accompanied by one of our counselors, and their parents met them there. As a follow-up for us, we worked with Montgomery County Police Department and our safety and security colleagues to really ensure that what appeared at first glance to be alcohol-related was in fact alcohol-related, and the determination was made that there was nothing else involved. There was no presence of anything else. There was nothing else found, and even the results from that we were given for the students indicated there was nothing else found. So with those 2 students, we immediately worried about their health and well-being first, rather than worrying about consequences. So we provided supports to the family immediately that day, and then met with the students and their parents to talk about the disciplinary consequences for their actions, but also how we could work to provide them some support. So this is something that we treated very seriously with the students that were involved, and always wanted to make sure for them that their safety and our care for them was the first priority, to ensure that they were able to come back to school when it was appropriate to do so. I do want to share with you, I know I said a little while ago it is not going to be a fentanyl, but I do want to share with you a few of the resources we have provided to those families, and this presentation we'll put out, but there's a couple of things that I think are just important to kind of put out as frequently as we can. So the first is this resource, Montgomery Goes Purple. And you may have seen this in different ways around different places, but this is an initiative related to really awareness around fentanyl overdoses and how we can treat those, which is thankfully not something that we have dealt with here at BCC, but you don't have to read many news stories to see that there are plenty of schools around, even in our immediate area, that have had to deal with this. So it is a resource that is there. The other is just a link with access to some adolescent services, because our students are experiencing a lot of different things. Your children are experiencing a lot of different things, and sometimes as a parent you have the answers, but sometimes you don't. And it's okay to not have the answers. What we want to encourage you and we encourage our students to do is to reach out and get help if you can with that. The other one that I think is, that I do want to share is really some mental health supports. So if you aren't aware, there is, for about 7 or 8 months now, a number you can text, 988, which is a suicide and crisis lifeline. And you can just text for help, and anyone can do that. It's no questions asked. It is something important to kind of have just filed away in your brain and to reinforce with your child if you need help that that's always available to you. There is information also there on this slide for the Montgomery County Crisis Center, which is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but the other one, the 988, is a good one to just file away and have always as a plan, something that you could do. So we're gonna do Q&A. We're gonna go to the questions that were the kind of the big themes of the questions that were asked in the online forum, and we have them in three big categories. And I'll try to hit everything and answer the questions as best I can. So the first is really just to talk a little bit about what safety and security at BCC looks like. And there were a lot of questions or several questions that were in this theme. So I just want to make sure everybody has a sense of kind of what it looks like here at BCC and what we're doing. So we do have 6 administrators on our staff. We have 5 members of our security team. In addition, we are supported by a community engagement officer who is provided through a partnership with Montgomery County Police Department. And we are supported by MCPS Safety and Security, which includes Mr. Owens, who is here on a regular basis, but we also have support from, are we calling them rovers now? Mr. Owens, roving security team members. So if we have a need that we've identified, we can get additional support through some other security assistants coming to us. So that's what we have, and we continue to look for ways to make safety and security at BCC a top priority. So we reflect on this all the time. We look for opportunities to make enhancements to what we're doing. If you walked around this building ever at all, you know that it's not a simple square where you can stand at one corner and see all the hallways that you could possibly do. So we've taken a few steps just in the last 2 or 3 months to try to help with some of this. One thing that we've done is we've actually provided, thanks to the generosity of some of our parent groups, iPads for all of our security team and all of our administrators so that they can view the camera system, no matter where they are in the building. So the benefit of that is that if they see a group of students going into an area or hanging out in an area and they're on the camera, they can either alert someone on the radio or they can go there themselves. So again, that's an upgrade we've made recently. We also have started utilizing a more random approach to our bathroom sweeps. We actually just had a conversation, Mr. Owens and I, this morning about reiterating to all members of our team, including our security team and admin, that we just don't walk by a bathroom without going in it, that we don't stop by a room and if it's open, we look in to see what's going on. And the other thing that we're utilizing is we have an in-school intervention program, and the real design of that is to make sure that if students are wandering the hallways during class, that we're getting them into a space where we know where they are and we're able to monitor their actions. So that's a little bit of safety and security there. Another big theme of the questions was the bathrooms at BCC. So we'll start with just saying bathrooms in high school are not a unique problem. I had a conversation this afternoon with Ms. Malchody about a conversation that apparently all the high school principals are going to have tomorrow afternoon about bathrooms. The fact that they're not a unique problem doesn't mean that we don't need to have a novel approach or a way that we're going to look at that. We do have, at BCC, 24 bathrooms, plus 2 gender-neutral bathrooms. So we have 24 single-sex bathrooms, 12 of each, and then 2 gender-neutral bathrooms that we monitor. We do lock bathrooms on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floor during lunch and before school. And we do that because we want to make sure that we have the staff capability to properly supervise those bathrooms. So before school, for example, our security team is out around the building, on the grounds, making sure that traffic is flowing properly, trying to prevent accidents out there. Our administrative team is greeting students at doors, making sure we don't have people come in who are not students or staff here. And we don't have the staff capability to monitor bathrooms on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floor. Those are opened at 7:30, which is 15 minutes before the day starts, but they are open. And then at lunchtime, we essentially run into the same thing. We have staff who are in different positions assigned around the building, doing student supervision, and we don't have the ability to monitor those bathrooms. So that's why those decisions are made about the bathrooms. The other thing that we've done recently is we have asked our teachers to limit passes in the first and last 10 minutes of class. And that's important because we want an opportunity to make sure that we have those bathrooms cleared, that we have the hallways cleared. We do have 6 minutes of passing time between classes, which in all but the most extreme circumstances is a surplus of time. There are a few kids who go from opposite corners of the building, but those are known entities and teachers tend to work with them. So we do that. The other thing that we are doing, and this is an upgrade that is in process right now, but Mr. Owens brought it to me last week, is we are setting up some barcodes to go in our bathrooms to allow students or staff members or visitors to anonymously report stuff to us. And that can be as simple as there's no paper towels in this bathroom to, hey, I was just in here and there was a group of kids doing X. But we're going to get those out and so that students can start sharing that information with us because we do have the ability to backtrack that. And the last thing I want to talk about is kind of that big topic of illegal substances. This is a tough one, very honestly. It is tough, and both as a parent and as an educator, I feel like every time we sort of figure out what students are doing or what kids are doing, I won't even say students, what people are doing, they find a new way to be a little bit more sneaky about what it is that they have happening on. But I'll go back to what I said before. We really are going to focus on prevention, education, consequences if necessary, and then really restoring a student as a member of our school community if we need to do that. So we're looking at anything we can do to monitor what goes on around the school, what we can do to help out with things that don't go beyond school and how we can support students and families and work through that. We will continue to provide resources, we will continue to provide that education, we'll continue to work to make connections with our students and try to do that. But that is a very tough thing for us to do, and that's just me being very honest with you about that. This past weekend, we spent quite a bit of time combing through information that a parent had provided us on kind of some activities that she was pretty certain were happening here at school, and there's some frustration in that because it's either old information sometimes or things that you can't really do anything with, and that's tough. But we continue to look for ways to make sure that our students are making good choices and that we're helping them see what to do. So that is all I have prepared, and I don't know if I did 16 minutes or not, Mr. McGee, that was my goal. But I'm going to look at questions now from Ms. Malchody.
There were two questions about drills.
Okay, two specific questions about drills. One, apologize. Do you call a shelter in place to keep halls clear for emergency personnel or shelter in place just for situations off campus? So that is a good question because I would have told you before I started preparing for this that it was shelter in place was for when I needed to keep the halls clear, but when I read the instructions we were given from system-wide safety and security, it is off situations in the community. Mr. Owens, am I right?
Yes. Situations in the community. If they're on campus, we're probably going to lock down. We also have, and it's kind of what you guys went through the other day, a modified shelter. I can speak. So we do modified shelters as well, and that's kind of when we need to bring an ambulance in. We can shut down a hallway. We can hold the bells for 5 minutes, things like that. But generally, shelter, something that's nearby campus or in the periphery of the parking lot, and then lockdown would be if something is on our property or in our buildings.
So I will go with saying this, that we try to come up with categories that fit every single situation, and then we have something that doesn't fit a situation, and we call it what it is. So last week, should it have been a shelter? Should it not have been? I don't know. It was an emergency, a medical emergency. That's the best I've got, honestly. I don't know that it fits neatly into one of those. The second question about drills was just to elaborate on the other 6, the rest of the 6. So lockdown is when there's an immediate threat in the building that makes us, that we think we need to secure all staffers and students in rooms and be able to monitor that. Evacuation is like a fire evacuation, fire drill. That would be what we would think about. There's a situation in the building that makes it unsafe for us to be here. Reverse evacuation is that we're all outside and there's a situation outside that makes it unsafe for us to be outside, and we all come back in. And shelter in place is that situation that Mr. Owens just talked about. So there's something happening. The example I've always been given before, if there was an accident with a tanker that might be letting out some noxious fumes or something in the area, we might choose to just keep everybody in the building. It's not an imminent danger, but it's there. Drop, cover, and hold is the earthquake drill. And the severe weather shelter is for tornadoes and thunderstorms that are deemed severe. And we get those alerts from the National Weather Service. That's when we do those. I have more detailed slides like this that I can, like these for each of those, that I will add into this presentation before I send it out. So, 2 questions. One, how are admin making the substance abuse support resources of parents and students? That is a good question. We do rely on our students and our counselors and our mental health staff to make sure students are aware. That is information that we can communicate more readily with students. So that is something that I will take note of and do. The second is, how are we involving our students and clearly communicating the safety policies with students? So that is the communication piece is something actually that we did at the beginning of the year, and then again following our September lockdown in terms of what the safety expectations were. We are sharing, for example, when we make changes like the first 10 and last 10 minutes, we're actually sharing those with teachers and asking them to share them with students. We are very aware that when we make announcements, you guys are the only 2 students in here, that's why I keep looking at you, that when we make announcements, daily announcements, that very little of it is actually heard. We do ask teachers sometimes to share messages that we want to make sure our students get.
Yeah. So somebody said a question, my child walks to school, I got 2 emails of a person, I think a male in a car walking, stalking girls at BCC. Is something being done to help? Yes. So we've had a few instances in the Chevy Chase area, Chevy Chase Elementary School, North Chevy Chase, of reports of a vehicle that's following kids. Nobody has been approached or asked to get in a car. The police in the 2nd district, which is Bethesda, and the 3rd district, which is downtown Silver Spring, because we do go all the way up 16th Street and East West Highway. They are well aware of the situation. I was at Chevy Chase Elementary School on Friday just to help out with dismissal because they had had a call the day before. And during dismissal, I saw 5 different police cars drive by. So the police are focusing on areas around the schools, areas around bus stops. The information that we're getting, unfortunately, is really different from case to case. The only thing that's similar is that it's a male that's following them. So we have been putting stuff out to the elementary school kids on what to do in those situations. We can do that here as well, to educate the kids on what to do. But the police are very well aware of the situation, and they're on it.
So this question, there are kind of 2 questions that go together. One, do we have smoking or vaping alarms in the bathroom? And How soon can MCPS install smart sensors in the bathrooms and more security in the hallway? So I have been told by our safety and security friends that we are not allowed to use those smart sensors, that they are not allowed. They do exist, but we're not allowed to use them. In terms of security cameras, those actually can be installed pretty easily. We have about 200 in the building right now, and really all we have to do is identify the space where we want them and put in a request for them, and they're pretty quickly installed. That's not a piece that's hard for us to do, but the vaping or smoking sensors are challenging, and that they're not allowed. So we're not allowed to use those. Second question, what do you think explains the increase in fighting, drug incidents, etc. at BCC in the past year? There are lots of things that might be that. We do have a group of students that their social skills over the past 3 years have really taken a hit, and interacting with people appropriately has been a problem. We really saw more of an uptick last year, honestly, compared to this year. We might be getting a little bit more kind of press on some of these, but some of the conversations we've had with students really have come down to, for a year and a half, they were able to hide behind a screen when they said something to someone else, and suddenly they're face to face and they would say the same thing, and it just caused quite a different reaction, and sometimes, unfortunately, a physical reaction. The uptick in drugs, I don't know. Again, as I said before, that is something that we are seeing across the county, and every time we think we've kind of got an answer or got something figured out, or we know what we're doing and what we're looking for, there's a new way that's there. We continue to look for those ways to make sure that our students aren't doing those things and that they understand exactly how dangerous they are. I would love to tell you I had that answer and I didn't, and I would love to tell you that, that we don't need to all continue to have those conversations with our kids at home about what they're doing, who they're doing it with, and even, unfortunately, sometimes accepting things from people that they may not know exactly what it is, because we've had a couple of instances of that too.
So the question is MCPS considering metal detectors? At this time, it's really not an easy answer to say yes or no. What happens with metal detectors is it's a very big process of where are you going to put them, how are you going to man them, how long is it going to take each school to get 2,500 kids, or schools like Blair with 3,400 kids into a building in a timely manner. So we're working on that. We did meet with some groups this summer that promise better results, but we've yet to see anything that satisfies what we're looking for. But it's always in consideration, but right now it's just, there's nothing out there that would really work for a school system.
So, one question here, can we prohibit smartphones and watches during the school day? There's actually a board policy that governs how students are supposed to allow those, how students are supposed to use and access their smart devices, and that is what we follow here at PCC. So students are allowed to have them during the day. They're not supposed to have them out during class, but that is really the limitation for high school students that we have, and that's by board policy. And it is the personal mobile device policy. I would love to tell you I knew the policy number, but it's, if you search personal mobile device, it's all laid out there. Miss Adamson just shared with me that some parents have told her they turn their kids' phones off during the day. So there's some magic out there that makes that be able to be happening. So
I did it.
if we can get 2,376 of you to do that, we would very much appreciate it.
There was some about the detectors. So there were some additional questions about why we can't use the vape detectors. Again, this is a technology thing. As of right now, in order to put them in the building, they would have to, and this, I'm not an IT person, but they would have to connect to a cell phone in the building, and the reception in our buildings is so that something that's inside the ceiling tile wouldn't work with a cell phone, is what I've been told. We actually had someone come out and look at it at one of our schools and said it wouldn't work until they fixed overall server issues in the building. So that's where we are. Sorry.
So we would absolutely welcome some parent volunteers at lunch to help us with some safety conversations. And if anyone is interested in that, we can start that conversation before you leave tonight, if you're interested in that. So another question about, could we create an announcement specifically about a medical or similar emergency? Absolutely we can, and that's something, again, that in our reflection we have done. Very honestly, I thought that was communicated, and again, full transparency, we were in the bathroom with these two young ladies. I radioed my secretary and said, I need you to make an announcement to hold the bells. Here's, I think my email that I asked her to send to staff was like 2 lines long, and that was that there was a medical emergency. And that's where we were in the moment. So is there some wording that we could work on so that our people who might be making those announcements have a common language? Absolutely. We have 2 kind of themes of questions otherwise. So one is about locking the bathrooms, and that is not a decision that we made easily, but when we started looking at where we were having issues with students, where we were getting reports of activities that we didn't want to have happening at school, especially before school and at lunch, that we started to really evaluate where we were and what we could do. We also recognize that because we have an open campus lunch, of our almost 2,400 kids, we probably have about 600 who stay on campus during lunch. So we don't need all the bathrooms necessarily that we have there. Most of our students do go off campus for lunch, and it is something that we're trying to monitor. We can make adjustments to that if that's something that we need to do, but we have to figure out how to do that strategically so that we can continue to make sure that we are able to monitor what's going on in those bathrooms and keep everybody safe. The other big kind of topic that was down there is communication during emergencies. So that is something, so in September, definitely there were a lot of lessons learned. This one, I've really been kind of struggling with this, and I'm just being honest about this. We have probably held the bells for ambulances 4 times this year prior to this. And it's not always something that we communicate because it's just something we do. Again, with the goal of not having a student on a stretcher going out while kids are changing classes and not having that go out there. So that communication piece in this situation was not something that was even in my brain. Again, just being very honest. Later, finding out that there were some pictures floating around out there, that's pretty disturbing to find out. And that is a tough piece that was there. So how that communication happened, we continue to look at what our protocols are and how we would do that. And whether that would be something that we would do in the future. I don't know, honestly, for a medical emergency, if it would always warrant a communication out.
And I think I was on a call today with the chief medical officer who was talking about a different incident, but the idea that with HIPAA, there are, so.
I can't keep that.
Wow.
Okay, so I was on a call with the chief medical officer today, and we were talking about some of these questions that you have that, you know, we're sort of talking about district-wide, and one of the issues with communicating, you know, particularly about something like that incident last Monday, is that there, you know, is privacy for the people who are, you know, getting that medical care. And that supersedes everything else at the moment. And that's difficult. I mean, look, I'm a parent, I have 2 teenagers. This stuff is painful and it's scary and it's a lot to think about. I started teaching in 1999 in this county, in the New Blair, and it feels different, and so it's hard to understand, but the health and the privacy and the safety of those students in that moment is always the priority. And so that's something, you know, I love Dr. K, she's our new chief medical officer, she's amazing. But she just really brings that sort of medical piece to it, which is so amazing to have in a district of over 160,000 students and over 200 schools. And just the idea that that privacy for those students in that moment is the most important thing. And we've had students who've had to leave in stretchers. I can tell you one of the schools that I work, we had a teacher die, and they had to do something similar where they had to clear the area. And you know, you don't want anyone to see it, and you also don't want those images, which is another reason why, you know, they clear the area and try to have as much privacy as possible. But that, I don't know if that helps at all, but.
Trying to give her a few more minutes to get down and look at, see if there are any themes. So we had 2 from the chat on YouTube. One is really how we make sure that teachers understand what they're supposed to do with students in all of the drills that we do, especially a shelter in place, if that's what we have. And that's the reason that we drill it, that we do those drills and we practice those opportunities. So we did do a shelter in place drill back in November, maybe October or November, Neil, I can't remember. So we do that with our teachers to drill and to do that. So the other one from the chat is, could we include a lesson on drugs, vaping, fentanyl, etc. in advisory? That is absolutely something that we can work on. So the Office of the Chief Medical Officer. I was on the phone with someone from that office this afternoon, and they had a couple of things to share. The first is, and then she asked me to work with our PTA to come and do a presentation for BCC parents on kind of that fentanyl and that drug overdose. So Lyric and I will get together and figure out a time when we can do that. That makes sense, so we can have that. And the second was to make sure that everybody knew that they don't have a date or specifics yet, but they are going to do another forum just like they did on this past Saturday, and they're going to do it kind of in a location that's more down county. So we have that. So look for that information from MCPS because it is important and quite honestly just scary when you see some of the things that they're sharing. But so Lyric and I will work on that. But in terms of a lesson for our students, we will take that, Ms. Adams, and I'm putting that card in my binder. So since you're in charge of advisory, we'll come back to that in a sec.
We talked about this today, the safety tiers for athletics. Possibly have lunch tiers for safety.
So we do, so the question is about revoking open lunch. So we do revoke open lunch for individual students based on behavior or actions that they take off of campus. It's a tough thing here at BCC. If you've ever been in the cafeteria, you know that we might be able to fit 200 kids in there, 250 if we really packed them in. And so if we talked about a bigger consequence, we'd have to have a totally different plan about how we would handle lunch here at BCC in order to give everybody a place and an opportunity to eat. It's not, again, we do it for individual students based on behavior or sometimes parental request, and we have check-in procedures so that we know that students are staying on campus, but it is not something that we have had a conversation about as a wholesale consequence for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, it came up today as the idea of possibly, we have the athletic safety plan where there are tiers of expectations. We're talking about that.
So-
tiers of safety for open lunches for high schools. You know, today. Communications or incidents? Okay, so that was, like, parents, students being notified of something. And then, sort of, the concern about substances on campus.
So, two questions, both kind of the same. What's admin doing to limit the selling of illicit substances, primarily vapes, and I think that says THC products on the school campus? And the kids know which bathrooms are de facto used illicitly. So we continue to monitor all of those spaces. We do look for those students who are there. We ask our students to say something. Again, that's a part of why we're going to put those barcodes in there, so in the bathroom, so that students can anonymously share with us information about stuff that's going on in the bathrooms. There is, interestingly, I think I shared earlier, if I didn't, like we spent the weekend dealing with some information that we had gotten from a parent, and very clearly, some text message exchanges between students about which bathrooms were hot was the term they used, and can't do that one now because it's hot. So again, some of it comes down to human resources in terms of being able to monitor everywhere at the same time. But how are we doing, Kat?
So one of them was lunch volunteers, yay. But just talking about the CEO, sort of wanting to know our CEO and sort of understand what their role is. Because they're not in SR, so I think that's a good, I mean, it's a good thing.
I know who's watching on YouTube.
So our CEO is Officer Mauricio Vega, and I'll speak for myself and my admin team. I think that his interaction with us and his kind of understanding of how schools work and his willingness to support BCC and our students and really help them learn is right on point. He is not, if you think of all of the horror stories that you might have heard of how CEOs react to situations and really go over the top, I have not been in a single incident with him in a year and a half where that has happened. He takes a very measured approach, trying to give the students the benefit of the doubt. We can talk with him about kind of getting him an opportunity to get in front of parents. I don't know how that is limited by their role, but I can talk with him, and I can talk with safety and security, and we can explore that. That's not something that I have a concern about, and I don't think he will either. He is a parent of 2 middle school students, so I know that these kinds of things are on his mind too.
So one of the ones that's come up again is just how can we make the mental health resources public for students and families. So I think that's.
So we're going to spend some time getting these resources out and try to figure out the best way to do that. We know for our students that Instagram is the best way, so I will make sure that is pushed out on our official Instagram and ask the classes to do whatever they do. I don't use Instagram, so I'm going to feign ignorance here, but Miss Sutton uses Instagram, so she will take care of that for me. But we also will make sure that our students get this information pushed out. One of the things that I also am going to ask our counselors to do is actually add these resources to the signature line of their emails, so that it's there and just present all the time. What should students do if they do not feel comfortable using the bathrooms or when there is noticeable smoke? So that's a tougher situation. So hopefully there's a bathroom nearby. Wasn't you? Okay, it's not for us. I will not look at that. I will turn my back to them. I'll single it out. She thought it was from you. I just do what she said. So hopefully, there are bathrooms relatively nearby if they are so. Again, part of our goal in doing this QR code is to allow people to tell us. So we'll make those not available just in the bathroom, but also outside and around, so that people can report stuff that's going on with the goal. I ask you to have your student tell your teacher so that we can find out what's going on if there's not an opportunity, because the only way, if students are doing that, is because they've decided that we're not at that bathroom right then doing it. So we need to be able to monitor that and to get to a space quickly. Because we are, there are essentially 11 of us monitoring the building with radios and iPads and able to look at the cameras at essentially any moment. So that's our ask, is to do that. But as a student, if you really got to go to the bathroom, go to the next bathroom. And again, there are bathrooms, none of them are really far apart in the building as you go. I think those are, thematically, I think we've gotten those already.
This one kind of goes along with that one, which is two classrooms, so, and then these questions talk about communication,
So what are teachers instructed to do when students are obviously drunk or high in class? So our instructions are pretty explicit to let us know, to call down to the office or to send an email to the administrator so that we can come and get that student out of class. We don't allow students to be in class when we know that they're high or drunk. But if a teacher allows that to happen, then we don't always know it is happening. So our instructions are pretty clear about let us know and we will take care of it from there.
I feel like I have a question there, and it seems like it's not being answered. And, the themes have been covered, but specifics aren't. It's very one-way kind of conversation here. And it's frustrating to.
I agree, it
Have
might
it
be easier
filtered.
to ask questions. Time seems silly.
And I think I'm not the only one here. We have to make the point that everyone understands the privacy of students or any individual who has medical emergencies. And no one is asking for that privacy to be revealed. We just felt that there was an information vacuum. No one's asking for any specifics to be revealed. And that kind of point is being lost with this one-way dialogue. That's all I'm feeling. I'm feeling it's your question. I think you have a dialogue.
Taking more time to read through the questions than if we just stood there and asked a question.
Yeah, and it's filtering in as if you don't want the open mic because you're afraid to hear from our words correctly.
What information are you looking for specifically? I mean, because there's,
Our kids didn't know it was a medical lockdown. My kids didn't. They were texting me that they were scared there was a shooter again. You said you did that. No one wanted to know information. I get that I work in the health department. No one wanted to know what was wrong with these girls. We just wanted to hear it was a medical lockdown, then our kids could relax in the class and we get 3 minutes.
so the school
My
was
kids
never
did not
locked
know
out.
that.
What was the announcement that was made? The announcement.
We're-
There's a medical emergency.
We're holding
Time it was, and that it was being locked down. The kids were told what time it was, and that it was being locked down, and that is all they were told.
Yeah.
That is all they were told. They were not told anything
That's not
else.
true. My daughter got information that it was a medical issue.
Yeah, the school was never, the announcement of a lockdown was never made. The announcement was made that the bells are being held for a medical emergency.
They never
That
said
was
that
not
on
an
our
option
emergency.
with the loudspeaker.
I'll tell you, my daughter said, I was taking her house out front, and I said, hi. She said, I can't come out. They're holding me down. I don't know why. And I said, I see a stretcher out front. And I said, someone probably needs medical attention. They need to prioritize a person's health and privacy first responders.
Right.
I think that's pretty straightforward.
And that's what happened.
And that's what happens with the students. That my daughter happens to know, but she's not going to tell the rest of the school and the students who are.
That's not her job to do that either.
Right, so I think the point is not that we need to invade privacy. Everyone understands that. The parents would also want that for their own kids, for a staff member, for anybody.
So I
It's
will
just an
say,
information that Tucker was very clear
right.
that from a lot of people here, that the information vacuum for students with the cell phones and so forth nowadays is very stressful. And having gone through that, another information vacuum was not helpful.
longer information boundary.
Yes, and so, and I feel like, this sort of format is somewhat unproductive, actually, for getting our point across. But I understand you don't want overlap, but the absence of actually reading the questions and trying to group them in themes means that you're filtering them and not actually reading the words from people submitting them. And there are people here who have their group. I'm not doing this, so.
Sorry, I'm receiving some direct messages from people trying to observe the chat. We have about 275 people in the stream, and they're not able to hear what's going on right now. So if we could please clarify, because they were following along and are not able to follow right now.
So we just had a side conversation about what students knew, what staff knew when they knew it, and where we were there. So there is a question here, and I will read the entire, there's two parts to this. Last week's incident indicates that whatever measures BCC has been taking to address bathroom safety, it wasn't enough. What has BCC learned since last week that it could do differently? So those are pieces that we're continuing to look at, even as a system, as we talked about. So there, again, a meeting tomorrow afternoon that I will be a part of as a system-wide, looking at lots of different options, taking doors off of bathrooms, looking at restricting access to bathrooms at different times and doing different things that are there. So I don't have a specific answer to that, but that's a question that we're looking at as a whole system. And the second question is, students were needlessly kept in the dark last week due to the nature of communication. Also, the Blackboard platform failed to notify many parents. Will BCC and MCPS recognize the need to do better and commit to it? I apologize, that was down on the margin there. So absolutely, so the Blackboard platform, that was a technical issue that we were able to learn about afterwards. That was a vendor error that we learned about, and Lyric and I had a couple of conversations about that. So there is a need to make sure that we're communicating effectively. Again, I will say, again, specifically about this, that a medical emergency is not something that I have always communicated about. So that is one that I will have to think on, whether that's something that would go that route or not. So we will take the questions we have. If anyone has more questions, we will take those and we will put them together and we will send out some answers to things. So we have more.
Can I throw out one that hasn't been answered? That
Yes.
I wrote in? You mentioned 4 instances with ambulances this year, this school year. Can you be transparent, or maybe I've just missed how you report how many arrests are made on this campus, or how many disciplinary actions are related to drugs? Like, where do parents get transparency on that type of information?
I'm honestly trying to think if there have been arrests this year related to drugs. Do we still send out, or is that part of the at-a-glance document for the school at the end of the year? Arrests. So MCPS publishes that annually, but there's not like a month by month or anything that goes with that that piece. And what was the second part? Arrest was the first part.
So, the feedback that I get from our student is that drugs are available at school every day, all day. And what I'm listening to is it's a rolled up county number at the end of the school year. Like, parents don't have a view into disciplinary action or arrest at a particular school as the school year goes on.
So so for BCC it would be, but it's at the end of the year. It's that it's available. So question from, once a report is submitted, what is the response after? Is a security guard allowed / able to search students if they, I'm going to say that says decline. So Depends on what the report is, and whether we have a reason to conduct that search. A security guard and administrator can conduct what's called a self-search of a student, and what that involves is actually the student emptying their items. Like if they were in my office, they would empty them on my table. They empty their pockets. They turn their pockets inside out. They empty their backpack. We never actually touch a student when we do that, but it's a self-search, and there's a protocol that all of our security staff are trained into related to self-searches, and we go through that. So if something happens and a student is something, and we believe that they might have something illegal or against school rules, well, then we can conduct that self-search. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know, what is the process and protocol for the Tatler? Because I have children who have been on the Tatler in editor positions, and through a lot of, I always saw a very thoughtful process to review articles before they're published. I see like the Wild West here, articles getting posted online in this immediacy, and then there's this issue of the privacy. I'd like to know what that protocol is, because I think that a lot of chaos was created because there wasn't a protocol followed to post these articles. And what is I don't know who the new sponsor or teacher is, but what is that person doing to review these things for it to be published so quickly? I know there's social media, Twitter, and people can post anything on that, but that's an official publication coming out of the school, and I think we need an answer on that.
So you have asked questions that we have also asked and are working through. The online platform of the Tatler is new this year, and with that new nature of that, it has come with some things that as a school, and for Ms. Solov and for the students who are running the Tatler now, because of every year there's a turnover in who's in charge, that we're having to kind of work through some of those details about exactly how those stories work and how they get them out there. With the desire on their part, legitimately, to provide as up-to-date news as they can, and how to work through that. So we are working with both the students and Ms. Solov to have those conversations. But it's not a situation where I blame the Tatler for anything at all.
No, I just think that should be vetted out. It's not, the Tatler is not.
The only thing I'm saying defense of that, because my phone blew up that entire morning, was that it was so heavily believed that this was a fentanyl overdose. And I actually was grateful to have the Tatler report, because I kept saying, no, I don't believe that's the case. But the rumors that spread through the school and through the students and through the parent community, we just live in a different age. And the photos that spread, and the photo I was sent was something that was posted on Snapchat.
Because that photo went out before anything.
That photo went out. I had that photo on my phone at 8:25 in the morning. That was how I saw it. It popped up on my phone. I'm walking my dog. And so, that was, the balance is that sometimes you actually need to get the news out to walk back some of the other things that are flying around out there.
Yeah, we had an incident at our daughter's middle school just a couple days later, and it was unbelievable. We were notified while the kids were still outside for a gassing. Granted, it's the second time they've had a gassing at the school, but, at least we're notified almost instantaneously that just so you know, the kids have just been evacuated, they're outside, we have cold, rain, whatever, but, everything's okay. But, it was just crazy how we had these two different scenarios, at school. One we're notified immediately, the next one it's sometimes, so much later in the day. And then we were notified again once everything was all cleared, the kids were back in, we were told what the issue was, not much equipment, they turned it off, everything's fine. I appreciated just not having to hear that from my daughter at the end of the day. And if a news alert came through on my phone, I wasn't worried because I already knew what happened.
So, good evening. So my name's Peter Moran. So I'm the associate superintendent. One of the clusters that I'm very proud to work with is the BCC cluster. So I wanted to just actually read a couple of comments out of transparency, and I do appreciate your feedback. That was not lost on me, so thank you. In terms of the question Q&A. So I want to connect one here. So in both of the MCPS responses to the lockdown in the fall and this most recent incident, parents and students were admonished for spreading rumors. I want to say that because I think some of that is what we're talking about right now. Rumors are a natural response in absence of sufficient contextual information. How are you going to provide better contextual info to help parents and students better understand what is happening more quickly? And so I want to connect that to some feedback here around a text system that universities use that we don't. So in actuality, we do have the ability to send out text. And one of the things that we're right now in discussions about is, so relative to the lockdown. Now, I'll share something similar. So I was at Albert Einstein High School the other night, where they had a lockdown. The principal and staff had reason to believe that there was a firearm in the building. They called a lockdown. It was handled very well in a lot of ways by the staff and the students there. I want to say even in some cases students sometimes take the lead, as we've kind of found out in September here. But what happened was the principal, who was like heartbroken over this, clicked the staff but didn't click students and families. And so he's showing me, and I wasn't on site, but he's showing me these copies of messages that go out. And what we learned by that, and I'll use the BCC incident as well, we have this ability to send out mass information centrally. To put a principal in the position where they are managing a situation where there's a potential firearm, and we've now have this culture, right? And it's understandably so. It's a race to get information out. And so we put principals in this place where, while you handle an emergency situation, you feel this immense pressure to also get communication out to your community at the same time. And so one of the things that we're discussing is that no longer would the principal be that person. Centrally, if I am outside of a building, I could send a message out to the BCC community, specifically just saying 2 sentences, right? There's a lockdown right now, more information is forthcoming. 10 minutes later, I might be able to give a little bit more information. 5 minutes later, I might be able to give a little more information. So I share that to say, as a principal is dealing with a certain issue, and I'm not saying that we're doing a great job communicating, because the fentanyl thing has been something that has required us also to change the way that we communicate. It's very scary for kids. It's extremely scary for parents. But that's one of the things. So I just wanted to say that in response to that. Tomorrow we're having a meeting with all of our high school principals, and we're gonna be sending out a communication to our communities about things that we're gonna do with all these different things that are going on. Again, I'll just give another example, and I'm quite certain that many of you read the news. Richard Montgomery High School. So Richard Montgomery High School had an incident where they let another student into the building. And so we have talked about the even alarming some of our doors for when they're used as exits, and starting to have more of one-way traffic in and out of buildings for students. So I say all that to say that there are going to be some changes on the horizon that are going to be inconvenient in some ways for all of us, but be done out of the interest in the safety of our students, our families, our staff. So I share that there's going to be a lot of ongoing conversations about safety and security and what we're doing moving forward. I don't want to not read a couple of, so we had one, the communication for the September lockdown was unacceptable and was even worse. For this recent event, when will it change? So I hope I kind of alluded to the, you know, where we are in that process. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if you were present at the September meeting or if you heard any feedback about it, but I think there was a lot of suggestions, a lot of understanding that the principals are under a lot of stress, that their staff are over. And there's a lot of discontent with the way it was handled at the county level. And we all know you can get texts from MCPS and so forth. And I appreciate that you're now looking into these different options. But since we raised it back in September with a lot of concern, I think there was, this question is alluding to the promptness of action.
So one of the things that we did in response to that September incident, which you may be aware of, is that we set informing the community within 30 minutes of a lockdown, and providing opportunities for updates every 20 minutes as a standard protocol across the entire school system. And again, when I go back to the specific example of Albert Einstein, that principal got out a message within 4 minutes, got up a follow-up message within 17 minutes, but they didn't go to anyone but the staff, right? So clearly we need to examine, like, so for instance, one of the things that was on a point of discussion with principals was appointing someone to be your communications person with an ability to not even taking that on, right? But I still think that the solution is more in the central process so that all of these staff can be deployed to handle the emergency situation. So we have, believe it or not, we have made a lot of upgrades. We went through training with all 211 schools as a result of the conversation that we had here. We had 211 PTA meetings to go through that same process, those same exact slides with those communities. And yet we still have to, we need to practice more, and we need to practice and include our parents and community members in that process, because even terminology before, I know we're talking about, a medical emergency, and some people hear medical emergency, they hear shelter, they hear lockdown, they hear weather-related emergency, and so we use this terminology. And one of the feedback I got from a parent around lockdown at Einstein was that their family was not from the United States, and they thought they were talking about, that they thought when the message went out, we were talking about a COVID lockdown. So I do think that we need to really get in a cycle of, we have a drill here, we send out information to the parent community following the drill to say how it went. Here's some things we'd like for you to talk to your child about, because unfortunately, the preparation is the most critical part. But that's not to defend the work we need to do around communication. I do want to. So one of the questions in here said, why would we notify parents? Why not notify parents before students of the lockdown? And so the answer to that is very simple. It's the students that have to go into the lockdown and the staff that have to go into the lockdown. Notifying the parent community prior to doing that would not make anyone any safer inside of the building. But that was a question, so I do want to honor it and answer it. But other like thoughts, questions.
Can you just talk about this whole hall pass policy in the bathrooms? I know some high schools have taken off the doors to the bathrooms. This 10 minutes before and after, or when class starts and at the end of class, that to me seems like the kid that's got to use the bathroom, think about young women, might not have a choice when they have to use the bathroom, miss the most pertinent instruction.
Yeah.
So what's the goal? Is it curbing vandalism? Is it truancy? Is it drug use? Is it alcohol use? What's the policy for? What's the goal? Maybe it's laudable. And is it working? Einstein takes the doors off their bathrooms. Kennedy takes the doors off their bathrooms. We lock them. And it just doesn't seem to me that, it seems that we're all kind of grasping at straws to find something to curb the, if this is the goal, curb the alcohol and the drug use in the bathrooms, and I'm not sure it's working.
So in terms of hall pass, from a system standpoint, there's not a policy around that. So I don't want to like take Mr. Mooney, Dr. Mooney here, and throw him under the bus, but I'm going to.
No, because I've heard from other high school parents that have this. In fact, that the 10-minute, that the beginning of class and the end of class has been at other high schools for a lot longer than December here at BCC. And by the way, we didn't even, I don't think we even got notice of the new hall pass policy until about 2 weeks ago, when the students were subject to it before winter break.
So I don't know if you want to.
Vicky actually wanted to talk about this. Ms. Addison.
Well, I absolutely agree that 10 minutes, in the first 10 minutes of class, that's the most important when students are getting instruction about what they're going to do. We were finding that it was difficult to clear the halls if students were going to class and getting passes immediately, and then they were also missing that instruction that we wanted them in class for. So we really just enacted it in force at the beginning of this semester. We had started talking about it, but we wanted to make sure that there was a clear, definitive time when we enacted that policy. So it's really now that we're trying to help all students understand. We do try and leave the doors open on our bathrooms so that we can see. But again, if we can get students to go to class, be in class when the bell rings, and not have passes, that is our primary goal, so that they can be in class with that initial instruction, and then at the end of class, to see what homework there is. So we have asked teachers not to give passes in the first 10 and the last 10 minutes of class. Now, there are exceptions and emergencies. If students really need to go, then the teachers will understand and we can make those exceptions. But we can't have bunches of students in the halls, some of them with passes, some of them without, because it's really hard to tell who should be there. So we just want to clear the halls initially. I don't know if that answers your question, but I did want to clarify that that is our policy now, and that's what we are really putting in place at the beginning of this semester, right now. So we'll make sure we do a better job of communicating that to families so that families can help us support that initiative with their students.
And there are no bathrooms locked other than before 7:30 and during lunch. That is...
The only exception to that would be if there was a maintenance issue with a specific third floor B wing bathroom and, sink's not working, or, that's the only, other than that, there are no bathrooms locked.
So I real quickly just, you go first. Go ahead.
Is that now you have to have student ID and security is going to check your student ID. There's an email out 10 hours recently about that. And I think now that there's a forward person as a student, no teachers enforce any sort of, they do what they think is right. And I just think now that there's been so much commotion about it, there's really not one way the school does all passes.
Are you talking about the late arrival policy?
There was an email sent out that talks about when a student is walking in the hallway to go to the bathroom, a security guard has the ability to go up to them and ask them for student ID to make sure they're in the right place. I'm not really sure what that is.
It was in the SMART, and the ask is for students to carry an ID, because at the end of the day, all we really care about is student safety. And with 2,300 students, our security is amazing. They know so many students, but you can't know everyone. And so if we're having an issue, if a student arrives late, can you show us your ID? If you don't have your ID, can you pull up your schedule on Synergy? We want to make sure that if we come across a student that we don't know, that we have a way to identify that they do belong at BCC. So that was the ask. And it was in the SMORE, which is the weekly Sunday announcement that goes out to families.
So I just wanted to read this question right here. Are there, or can you install silent smoke and vaping alarms in the bathrooms that ring in the front office? And then on the back it says Westland Middle School has them. So we just confirmed Westland Middle School does not have them. Right now no MCPS schools have them, but we're gonna go back with Mr. Owen and his team to determine.
Don't tell the kids at West.
Maybe that's what we got going on. So you think differently than I do.
Maybe we have them here too.
Yes, in the back.
Can you assign your security guards to these hot bathrooms? Isn't that sort of basic?
They do.
So on the list, the email that we got this week from the parent, she listed eight bathrooms that she knows of, and in the process of talking about these, the message that the kids are saying, the kids are watching, they have someone stand down the hallway, and as soon as security comes down the hallway, they tell the kids in the bathroom they're coming. So our guys have the iPods, or the iPads with the cameras on them, and they're constantly monitoring. We have 5 security for 20, how many bathrooms? 22 bathrooms, and they're constantly, that's almost all they do now, is they go, and the rule is if you pass a bathroom, you go into the bathroom, you go to the last stall of the bathroom to check it, you don't just pop your head in. We've even gotten confirmation that if we're worried about something that's going on in an opposite sex bathroom, what can we do if we bang loudly on the door and announce ourselves 3 times, that if we're concerned that there's something serious going on there, that we can go in. So I mean, we're doing our best. It's an uphill battle with only 5 people and 20 plus bathrooms. But they know the hot bathrooms, and I'm sure your kids will tell you they catch kids all the time, and as soon as security walks in, 6 kids run out. So it's a constant struggle.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say, I'm really appreciative of all the efforts you guys all make at the administration. It's just really tough. There's different types of people who want different types of information at different times. I'm really happy that you guys are handling everything appropriately during the school day. I am happy to get the information when we are going to get to it, knowing that you guys keep the school safe for the kids.
Thank you. So I see 2 more. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, well, good evening. I have a major question about the new policy that has been put into place when they are doing safety drills. If we could be notified before versus after, that would provide us with a great opportunity to speak to our children and to let them know what is to occur. As we all know, this is kind of new to everybody, and it's been enforced, and I didn't find out that it was enforced until after it was done at the end of the school day. So I would kind of like to be notified in advance so that I can have this conversation with my teenager.
So I'm going to ask for clarification. So when we do a drill, you want us to notify you before we do the drill so that...
Well, specifically the firearm drill, or if there's an active shooter in the building. I know that the teachers and students are doing these as drills, and it came new to me this school year, so I would like to be notified so that I can have this conversation with my teenager. Because he didn't know what was going on until the end of the day, and that's when I was notified.
So that is part of our protocol, and that was, so the incident in September was not a drill, it was an actual situation where we needed to do a lockdown. But the subsequent drill which we did, and I apologize, I can't remember if it was in late October, early November, we did announce in advance, but that is part of our protocol for the drills. There are some drills that we have to make unannounced, fire drills especially, and that's unannounced for everybody except the administration that knows when we're going to do it. So. But that's the piece. So, ma'am, I think I saw your question.
Sure, yeah, I was just going to reiterate, I'd like to thank you to the students for coming.
Thank you.
her comment kind of got brushed over. Just to reiterate that to you, maybe make sure, like she's saying, steps and following.
I actually want to, can we chat about that maybe tomorrow, about the passes, and so I can make sure I understand? The piece about the ID, I got that, but the passes, I make sure I understand.
I think it's just that there are so many different policies that, and again, they're defense teachers, right, don't know what to do and feel like they're just doing the best they can too, so if you think they're, I think the
Absolutely.
kids probably have the best insight as to what's going on during the day.
Absolutely. Thank you all very much. I hope that you have a safe trip home and a great evening.